Some people like collecting things. Others build things. Some even build things to house the things they've collected. Just like Noah built an ark to collect all the animals, Bob George, he goes by B, is doing something similar with pop music. B's Ark, the Archive of Contemporary Music, is billed as one of the largest collections of popular music in the world. But after over 35 years in New York City, B and his one-of-a-kind archive of 3 million plus items have gotten the boot.
Welcome to the archive. I'm Bob George. I'm the co-founder and director here. And we're in Tribeca in Lower Manhattan, and we're going to give you a quick tour. I think we're a little bit different than most other archives because we're not focusing on any one kind of music. We think if it's been produced, then it should be saved. We have absolutely no sense of quality. We've been sort of laughingly described as the dumpster of pop music, but I like to think more of it as like Molly Bloom and the soliloquy in Ulysses, that where you say yes, yes, yes to everything, and you're sort of welcoming as opposed to judging things. We started with my collection, which was about 47,000 recordings. Hip hop, punk, experimental, reggae. Most libraries weren't collecting that material. So we started our own. These are my God records. Satan Will Jump on You for Nothing. There are lots of ventriloquist records. We have a lot of silent records. There's the wit and wisdom of Ronald Reagan. Mimes have made records. Music to have dinner by. There is dinner in Caracas. There's dinner in Buenos Aires. There's dinner in Puerto Vallarta. I mean, it's like everybody had a music to have dinner by. The records by assassins and dictators are very common, believe it or not, as much as God records are common. I do believe it's impossible to judge art, culture, quality in your own time. We take everything, because that's the only way you'll really have an idea of what happened in any era. Otherwise, you're just collecting the hits, and sometimes they're not that important. We're not historians, but we want to keep this stuff alive so that people can see what really happened as opposed to what just made the charts. The whole idea was to try to preserve every sound recording in the world. Everything is donated. We have almost no budget for acquisitions at all. We had no idea if people would give things, or we'd have to buy things or whatever. Often people leave things on the doorstep overnight, and we just, hopefully they're still there the next morning. It's always been a seat of the pants kind of thing. And then we just got lucky. So David was very sweet for us, and he's the only person we ever met who glowed. And he decorated one for me himself, which is really nice. This is an early Robert Johnson, Me and the Devil Blues. And so this came up for auction, and he came up with the money to buy it. They think it's one of 10 or 15 in the world. We've digitized about 170,000 old 78s. That's all available online at the Great 78 Project. And we're really in favor of music, right? We don't really care about the format. Any way it can survive is best. You have to be aware of how the world works all the time, and it changes very quickly. Not in a bad way, it just changes. When we were doing the 78s, we discovered this woman named Aileen Stanley. She's like an ordinary parlor song singer, outsold Caruso. That's phenomenal. That's like 1 million records being sold in the 20s. How is that possible that nobody knows who she is? The more things you can get preserved, both physically and digitally, the better it is for culture to survive and the musical culture to survive. You can say that it's important to be a human being to know about what happened in the past and to know where things come from, but that's debatable. Learning to come to terms with that is very difficult unless you don't know any better. If you know about the past, it can be depressing. To say that you want to save everything because you think it has value is not actually altruism. It's just sort of a gut reaction to the world, right? Everything's going to perish. You do your best to try to keep it alive.
After nearly 4 decades of keeping his dream open to researchers and inquisitive explorers, rising rents forced the Ark out of Lower Manhattan. Pulling off this delicate move amidst the pandemic has been no small challenge.
Talking about probably 6 runs of big trucks going 90 miles away. So, yeah, it's an expensive and stupid enterprise.
B's menagerie of sound has hit the high seas for a new state-of-the-art home. donated by an anonymous benefactor in upstate New York. It's yet another loss for the city, but a guarantee that the archive's work will continue.
We've gotten 3 foundations who've come on board to offer us a great deal of help. A new building of this size, it's going to be over 20,000 square feet, and safe, is an incredible gift.
The Ark's eventual landing site is still a secret right now, but keep your eyes open for the dove B will release when he makes landfall and reopens his collection to the public.
Okay, sorry, am I doing too long? Is this that's okay? Basically, this starts because David Wheeler, who was a friend, came to me and said, this book is great. This is the big volume, the 700-page book on punk I put together called Volume. Where are the records? How come they're not being saved? And so that really starts this idea, is that somebody else gave me my own book and said, why aren't we saving these things? And so we looked around and found that no one was actively going after it. And so that's what we started. We've had some really incredible dance parties where we had people we know bring their favorite records and spin them for other people. So those would be our major benefit parties. Like one of our most memorable was I brought Chic together for the first time in a long time with Nile Rodgers and recruiting new background singers because people had dropped out and Bernard Edwards had already died. And so but then we had David Bowie be our host for the party. So it was, and Nile had produced Let's Dance, one of David's most successful recordings, so they were friends. So we try to bring things together. Another one that was really fabulous was when we had both Mike D, Dr. John, and Nile DJing at the same time. And that was fabulous because they were all like looking at each other's records and sort of, judging each other by what they liked. And Dr. John had just brought 78s, which was really unusual and created a problem. We had to run out and get a separate turntable to play the things, but it was like so much fun. Down here and over here, this is one of the worst things that's ever happened to us. Somebody gave us 4,000 LPs, but none of them were in the sleeves. And they were separated from the sleeves, and they're not near the sleeves, and they've been out for so long, it's like not such great condition. So a lot of it has to be tossed. You saw the stuff, I think, in the windows. We'll go and look, but there's part of that same collection was 24,000 78s, but they had packed them this way and then stacked them on top of each other. So the weight of the boxes above broke about 4,000 of them. So it's kind of sad because when you look at them, some of them are incredibly rare, like Sonny Boy Williamson, and we're crying because these wonderful things are very, very scarce and gone. One of our favorites is this Jackie Gleason, because it's Jackie Gleason and Salvador Dali shaking hands on the back. My favorite thing, the Michael Jackson air fresheners, because we all want to smell like Michael in the car. This is like, it has no value. But it's like a bossa nova written to promote the tile. Another theme that we have is Holocaust Nazi records, because we find that amazing. But I think people forget that there were, in the 1930s in America, there were these Bund organizations, and you have, I think, a tremendous rally of more than 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden in the 1930s. But I don't think there are any good choirs doing, Nazi works. But it's a nice thing to try to chronicle that these things really happened and that they were widely accepted. We recently had someone donate 2 of the 3 only known Ku Klux Klan 45s. So they actually had a record label and were putting out sound recordings also. And so whenever we see stuff like that, again, it helps you reimagine what times were like and what people could get away with impunity. We always try to emphasize that one of the best ways that things are saved are because things are stolen, right? Look at the Elgin marbles, look at so much of the artwork in the world. It's pretty much, a lot of it's unverifiable of what the source is. And when people do the same thing with sound recordings and photographs and maps and anything that has some value, there's always going to be a lot of it that is tossed also by major institutions because they don't think it's important. There are are fires, there are floods. It happens all the time. Masters are missing. There's theft within the companies. A record company will often get rid of material because they no longer have that artist in their roster. So all of a sudden, all of their press material and everything gets thrown out or picked up by somebody. So it gets filtered out. One of the goals of this thing is to try to bring it all together. That's also the sort of sad thing, right? What we're doing in 5,000 years, it's all gone. So we're rooting for electricity to survive, but we're not sure. We just have to sort of realize that pop stardom doesn't have a real long life to it. And that's just sort of the way it is. Things get really forgotten. Generations are much closer now than they used to be. You know, probably pre-war time in America, parents and kids listened to the same music. And then after the war, it starts to change with the invention of the teenager and how things really start to become more codified. And now, you know, a 15-year-old kid, his 7-year-old sister is listening to something different. So it's really, really changed in a drastic kind of way. So you have to constantly, part of the reasons of having a place like this or any library or any archive is to reintroduce people to what happened in the past, what shaped the future. And we're never sure, you know, people are always saying, how did they do that? Where did that come from? And that this is part of that we can go back and say, well, this person, the Fatback Band did this, and that because of that, Sugar Hill did this. And so you can get a sense of the evolution of hip hop.
Continuity, yeah.
Yeah. I'm convinced it's going to be like a chip. Everybody's just going to have a chip. I always wanted a tattoo that would have the music, or a patch that would have music and a drug together to go with the music, and you could just put it on. And I think that would be a great idea. I don't think most people know that Maya Angelou was a calypso singer and that she was a babe. Can I say that? Can I say she's a babe? This is probably hard to photograph, but this is the layer of dust that covered the entire collection after 9/11. So we try to keep that separate so people realize how much work it was to just keep this place alive. So I also happen to have my little Buddha here who keeps a piece of the World Trade Center that landed on my roof in Lower Manhattan.